The silence in the VIP lounge of the Obsidian Club wasn't empty, it was heavy. It possessed mass and weight, pressing against the eardrums of the men lounging on Italian leather sofas. Tyrell the King Vance hated silence. Silence was for the dead and the weak. He filled his world with the thump of bass, the clink of crystal glasses, and the sound of his own voice commanding the city's underworld. But the girl standing in the center of the room, she was a void. "Check her pulse, Darius," Tyrell said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. He didn't look at her face. He looked at her shoes, cheap canvas sneakers that offended his eyes against the plush Persian rug. "I think the Southside crew sent us a mannequin." Darius snickered, flicking a lighter open and closed. "She ain't dead, boss. Just broken. Look at her eyes. Nothing home." Zola stood motionless. She didn't sway. She didn't fidget. Her hands hung loosely at her sides, fingers curled in a resting state that looked passive to an untrained eye but was actually the preparatory stance for lethal kinetic engagement. She wasn't looking at Tyrell. She was counting the seconds between the strobe lights flashing from the dance floor below. Flash. 4 seconds. Flash. "I'm talking to you, mute," Tyrell's voice dropped, the amusement vanishing. He stood up, his expensive suit jacket rustling. He walked around the desk, invading her space with the arrogant stride of a predator who has never met a bigger beast. He circled her. He smelled of tobacco and arrogance. "You think you're better than us? Is that it? You think because you don't speak, you don't have to bow?" Zola remained absolute. Her heart rate didn't spike. Her pupils didn't dilate. She was a statue carved from obsidian. Tyrell grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. His grip was bruising. "You are a ghost in my city, girl. And ghosts disappear when I tell them to." He waited for the tear. The tremble. The beg. Nothing. Just a dark, infinite stare that felt like looking down the barrel of a suppressor. Tyrell shoved her away, disgusted by her lack of reaction. It felt like punching water. "Get her out of my sight. Put her on coat check. If she loses a single ticket, break a finger. Maybe pain has a language she understands. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel." Darius grabbed Zola's arm, roughly pulling her toward the door. "Come on, mouse. Let's find you some cheese." Zola moved with him, fluid and compliant. But as she passed the mirrored wall, her reflection didn't show a victim. It showed a soldier behind enemy lines, checking the sight lines, calculating the structural integrity of the drywall, and marking the primary kill zones. She wasn't trapped with them. They were trapped with her. The high table dinner was theater. It was a performance of power, and Tyrell was the lead actor. The private dining room was a glass cage suspended 40 stories above Chicago, isolated from the grime of the streets he ruled. The rival bosses, O'Malley, Griggs, and King, ate their steaks rare, laughing at Tyrell's jokes because they feared his reach. Tyrell basked in it. "We take the ports by November," Tyrell announced, gesturing with his fork. "And if the feds get curious, we feed them a scapegoat." He snapped his fingers. "Wine." Zola stepped out of the shadows. She moved so quietly that Griggs jumped, spilling a drop of sauce on his tie. "Jesus," Griggs muttered. "Put a bell on that one, Tyrell." "She's a ghost," Tyrell grinned, watching Zola pour the vintage Cabernet. Helpful, silent, and invisible. The perfect woman. He reached out, his hand hovering over her lower back, a possessive, demeaning gesture meant to show the other men that he owned everything in the room. Zola didn't flinch. She poured the wine with the steady hand of a surgeon. But inside her mind, the countdown had started. Threat proximity, 0. Hostile intent, moderate. Engagement window, closing. Then, the air in the room changed. It wasn't a sound at first. It was a vibration. A low-frequency hum that rattled the silverware against the china. Then came the ring. It didn't sound like a phone. It sounded like a digital scream. BRRRZZZT. BRRRZZZT. The laughter died. Tyrell frowned, patting his jacket. He pulled out the black satellite phone, the god phone he kept for emergencies that never happened. The screen wasn't just lit up. It was pulsing red. Incoming secure transmission, Pentagon/JCS Alpha. Tyrell stared at the letters. The air in his lungs turned to ice. This phone didn't have a number. It didn't exist on any registry. Boss? Darius stepped forward, hand on his gun. Shut up, Tyrell whispered. His thumb trembled as he pressed the receive key. Who is this? Tyrell demanded, trying to summon the king's voice. Tyrell Vance, the voice on the other end was synthetic, stripped of humanity. It sounded like Judgment Day. Do not attempt to leave the room. Do not attempt to signal your security. You have 5 seconds to tell me who you are before I hang up, Tyrell blustered. Look at your chest, Mr. Vance. Tyrell looked down. A single, unmoving red dot sat perfectly centered on his silk tie. It wasn't a laser pointer. It was intense, burning slightly, a focused beam of death. That is a targeting designator from a high-altitude drone, the voice said calmly. We have a Hellfire missile locked onto your heat signature. We can vaporize your entire bloodline before you blink. Tyrell froze. The world tilted on its axis. He looked up. Through the glass ceiling, he saw nothing but the night sky, but he felt the eye of God staring down at him. What do you want? Tyrell choked out. You are in possession of United States government property, the voice said. Asset Alpha. She is standing 3 feet to your left holding a bottle of wine. Tyrell turned. His neck creaked. Zola was standing there. She wasn't pouring wine anymore. She was looking at the phone in his hand with an expression of utter boredom. Hand the comms to the asset, the voice commanded. Immediately. Or we turn the Obsidian Club into a parking lot. The power dynamic in the room didn't just shift, it evaporated. Tyrell Vance, the king of Chicago, looked at the girl in the black dress and realized he wasn't the predator. He was the prey. He extended the phone. His hand shook so violently he almost dropped it. Zola took it. Her grip was firm. Status, she said. Her voice was unrecognizable. It wasn't the silence of a mouse, it was the command of a general. Alpha, we have confirmation of hostile containment, the voice on the line said, broadcasting loudly enough for the room to hear. Heart rate elevated. Cortisol levels nominal. Are you injured? Zola's eyes flicked to Tyrell. He flinched. Negative, Zola said. Situation is under control. Abort the kinetic strike. General Sterling has authorized a scorched earth protocol, the voice argued. If you are compromised, we level the block. No loose ends. I said abort, Zola snapped. You drop that payload, you lose the intel I've spent 3 months gathering. Pull the Reaper back to surveillance altitude. I am initiating exfiltration. Cleaners are on the roof, Alpha. Breach in 10 seconds. Zola sighed, a sound of supreme annoyance. She hung up the phone and tossed it onto the table. It slid across the mahogany, stopping in front of O'Malley, who looked ready to vomit. "You." Tyrell stammered, backing away until his legs hit the chair. "You're a Fed?" Zola reached down and grabbed the steak knife from Tyrell's plate. In one fluid motion, she slashed the hem of her dress, ripping the fabric up to her hip to allow for a full range of motion. "Feds read you your rights, Tyrell," she said, testing the weight of the knife. "My father doesn't believe in rights. He believes in erasure." "Your father?" "General Marcus Sterling," she said. "You might want to cover your ears." "Why?" "Because the windows are about to break." Crash. The world exploded. The glass wall overlooking the city shattered inward as rappelling lines swung through. Four figures in matte black tactical armor crashed into the room, boots hitting the floor with heavy thuds. They raised suppressed assault rifles. "Target identified," one shouted, his voice distorted by a gas mask. "Secure the asset. Liquidate the hostiles." Tyrell screamed as a bullet tore through the chair next to his head. Zola didn't scream. She moved. Time slowed down. For Tyrell, it was a blur of terror. For Zola, it was simple geometry. She grabbed the heavy wine bottle and hurled it. It wasn't a random throw, it struck the lead operative directly in the faceplate of his ballistic mask. The glass shattered, the wine blinding him for a crucial second. Zola dove. She didn't dive away from the guns, she dove into them. She slid across the floor, sweeping the legs of the second operative. As he fell, she was already rising, using his momentum to pivot behind him. She grabbed his combat knife from his vest, her movements so fast they blurred, and drove the pommel into the base of his skull. He dropped like a stone. Tyrell cowered under the table, clutching his head. He watched through the gap in the tablecloth as the mute mouse dismantled a Tier 1 Black Ops team. She flowed like water, redirecting their force, breaking joints, and using their own bodies as shields. She grabbed an assault rifle from the floor. She didn't spray bullets wildly. She fired 2 shots. Thwip. Thwip. 2 operatives dropped, incapacitated by leg shots. Zola turned to the table. She flipped it over with surprising strength, creating a barricade. She grabbed Tyrell by the collar of his suit and hauled him up. "Move," she yelled, her voice cutting through the ringing in his ears. "My men." Tyrell gasped. "Your men are dead or running," Zola said. "The cleaners don't leave witnesses. If you stay here, you are a statistic." She dragged him toward the kitchen service exit. Tyrell stumbled, his expensive shoes slipping on the glass and wine. He looked at her back, the muscles tensed, the focus absolute. He had bullied her. He had called her weak. He had threatened to break her. And now, she was the only thing keeping his heart beating. They burst into the kitchen. More gunfire erupted from the hallway. "The elevator is locked down," Tyrell shouted. Zola didn't answer. She pointed the rifle at the heavy industrial gas line running along the ceiling. "Run," she said. "What?" "Run." She fired. A jet of gas hissed out. She grabbed a lighter from a stunned cook's counter, lit it, and threw it behind her as she shoved Tyrell into the garbage chute. The explosion rocked the building foundation. The shockwave sent them tumbling down the metal slide into the dumpster in the alleyway below. They smelled of garbage, smoke, and fear. Tyrell Vance limped through the damp tunnels of the abandoned subway line, his $5,000 suit shredded. He was shivering, but not from the cold. He was shivering from the realization of how small he really was. Zola walked ahead of him. She had discarded the heels miles back. She walked barefoot on the gravel and rusted tracks, her rifle slung over her shoulder, scanning the darkness with night vision focus. They reached a maintenance alcove. Zola kicked the door open and swept the room. Clear. Tyrell collapsed against the concrete wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. My city. He whispered. They blew up my club. They sanitized the site, Zola corrected, checking the chamber of her weapon. Standard protocol for a compromised location. Who are these people? Tyrell looked up, his eyes wild. I pay off the police. I pay off the judges. I own this town. You own the streets, Tyrell, Zola said softly, sitting on a rusted crate. My father owns the sky. You play checkers. He plays global thermal war. She adjusted her dress, wincing slightly. The adrenaline was fading, and Tyrell saw a flash of pain cross her face. You're hurt, he said. Old injuries, she dismissed. But as she moved her arm, the fabric shifted, revealing the skin of her shoulder. Tyrell gasped. It was a map of agony. Burned scars. Jagged lines from shrapnel. A brand mark that looked like a serial number. Did the cartel do that? Tyrell asked, his voice trembling. Zola looked at the scars. No. My instructors did. Failure was not an option in the Sterling household. You either adapted, or you broke. Tyrell looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the toll of her strength. He had called her silence weakness, but he realized now that her silence was a dam holding back a lifetime of violence. He reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing the spare burner phone he kept in his sock. I need to call my lieutenants. If we can rally the crews. Zola was on him in a heartbeat. She pinned his wrist to the wall, her eyes blazing. Do not, she hissed. If you broadcast a signal, the triangulation software will find us in 3 seconds. A drone will put a missile through that ventilation shaft before you can say hello. So what do we do? Tyrell yelled, fear making him aggressive. We just rot in a hole? I'm the king. I don't hide. You aren't a king down here, Tyrell, Zola whispered, leaning in until he could see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. Down here, you are just a liability. You have no army. You have no money. You have no power. She released his wrist and stepped back, standing in the center of the room like a warrior queen in rags. You only have me, she said. And if you want to live to see sunrise, you will do exactly what I tell you. Tyrell swallowed hard. The silence returned to the room. But this time, he didn't try to fill it. He simply nodded. The water in the rusted sink ran brown before turning clear. Tyrell ripped a strip of cloth from his ruined silk shirt, soaking it in the cold stream. His hands, usually manicured and steady, were shaking. He turned to Zola. She was sitting on the concrete floor, her back against the wall, eyes closed. Her breathing was shallow. The adrenaline crash had hit her hard. Let me see it, Tyrell said, kneeling beside her. His voice lacked its usual command. It was quiet. Rough. Zola opened one eye. I can treat my own wounds, Tyrell. I've stitched myself up in moving Humvees. Shut up, Tyrell muttered, but there was no bite in it. Just, let me do something. I feel useless standing here watching you bleed. She hesitated, then lowered the strap of her torn dress. The gash on her shoulder from the operative's knife was deep, oozing dark blood against her skin. Tyrell winced. He cleaned the wound, his fingers brushing against the old scars, the burns, the brands, the history of violence etched into her body. "Why?" Tyrell asked, pressing the cloth against the cut. "Why did you stay? You could have walked out the front door the day I bought your contract. You could have called your father and turned me into dust." Zola looked at the ceiling, watching a spider crawl across a water pipe. "My father doesn't rescue people, Tyrell. He retrieves assets. If I had called him, he would have burned your club to the ground with everyone inside just to sanitize the extraction site. You, Darius, the waitresses, everyone." Tyrell stopped. He looked at her face. "You stayed to save us?" "I stayed because I was trying to find a way out that didn't involve a body count," she whispered. "And you made it very hard, you know. Calling me weak. Mocking me." Tyrell looked down at his hands, stained with her blood. Shame, hot and unfamiliar, flooded his chest. He had bullied the only person who was holding back the apocalypse for him. He had mistaken mercy for cowardice. "I'm sorry," Tyrell said. The words tasted strange in his mouth. He hadn't apologized to anyone since he was 12 years old. Zola looked at him, surprised. The hard mask of the soldier slipped, revealing a tired young woman beneath. "Don't apologize, Tyrell. Just survive. The general doesn't stop. He." Crack. The single light bulb overhead shattered. Darkness swallowed the room. "Down!" Zola screamed, tackling Tyrell flat against the dirty concrete. A split second later, 3 rounds punched through the metal door, sparking against the back wall where Tyrell's head had been. Thermal scopes. They were outside. "They found the heat signature," Zola hissed, rolling off him and grabbing the rifle. "Stay low. Move to the tunnels." The subway tunnels were a labyrinth of shadows and echoing drips. Zola moved like a wraith, leading Tyrell deeper into the underground infrastructure of the city. They had been running for hours. Tyrell's lungs burned. His legs felt like lead. They emerged into a service station beneath a busy street intersection. Through a grate in the sidewalk above, the neon lights of the city bled down, illuminating the grime on their faces. Suddenly, every screen in the electronics store window visible through the grate flickered. The commercials for soda and cars vanished. A static gray screen appeared. Then, text. "Return to base, Alpha. Negotiations are open." Tyrell stared up at the screens. He hacked the billboards? How is that even possible? "He controls the grid," Zola said, her face grim. "He's tightening the noose." A payphone on the wall of the service station, a relic that shouldn't have even worked, began to ring. Zola walked over and picked it up. She didn't say a word. "Zola," a deep, gravelly voice echoed through the receiver. It wasn't the synthesized voice from before. It was a man. "This has gone on long enough. You've had your rebellion. Bring the criminal to the extraction point at Union Station. We will process him. You come home. No more blood." "You don't process people, Dad," Zola said, her voice trembling slightly. "You bury them." "He is a drug dealer, Zola. A parasite. He is not worth your life. You have 10 minutes before I authorize the cleaner teams to switch from containment to liquidation. If they switch, everyone dies. Including you." The line went dead. Zola hung up. She stood there for a long moment, her hand resting on the phone. Then she turned to Tyrell. "You have to go," she said. Tyrell blinked. "What?" "Go." Zola pointed to a maintenance ladder leading up to the street. If you surrender to the police precinct 3 blocks over, my father can't touch you easily. It becomes public record. He hates public record. And what about you? I'm going to Union Station, she said, checking her rifle. I'm going to draw their fire. Tyrell stared at her. She was willing to die for him. For the man who had called her a mute mouse. Something in Tyrell Vance broke. And something else, something stronger, was built in its place. No, Tyrell said. Zola frowned. This isn't a negotiation. You are a civilian in this world. You will die. I was a king this morning. Tyrell stepped forward, grabbing her hand. It was rough, calloused, and dangerous. He interlaced his fingers with hers. I'm not leaving my queen to fight my wars. Union Station was empty. The general had cleared the civilians, probably with a fake gas leak alarm. The grand hall was silent, the marble floors reflecting the moonlight streaming through the high arched windows. Zola and Tyrell walked into the center of the hall. They were exposed. It was a kill box. They are in the rafters, Zola whispered, her eyes scanning the upper levels. Snipers. North and south. I know, Tyrell said. He wasn't shaking anymore. He stood tall, adjusting the lapels of his ruined suit. If he was going to die, he was going to die standing up. General. Tyrell shouted, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Come out. You want the king? I'm right here. A spotlight hit them, blindingly bright. Secure the girl. Drop the target, a voice commanded over a loudspeaker. Thwip. A sniper round hit the floor inches from Tyrell's foot. Run. Zola shoved him toward a stone pillar. The hall erupted in suppressed gunfire. Bullets chipped the marble, sending stone dust into the air like smoke. Zola returned fire, her rifle barking a sharp, rhythmic cadence. She dropped a man rappelling from the ceiling. She spun and suppressed a team advancing from the luggage area. But there were too many of them. Tyrell saw a laser dot sweep across Zola's back. She was reloading. She didn't see it. Zola. Tyrell didn't think. He didn't calculate. He dove. He threw his body over hers just as the sniper fired. The bullet hit Tyrell in the shoulder. It felt like being hit by a sledgehammer. The impact spun him around, and he hit the floor hard, blood immediately soaking his shirt. Tyrell. Zola screamed. The sound was raw, terrifying. She looked at him, bleeding on the cold stone. Her eyes changed. The discipline vanished. The restraint evaporated. She stood up. She didn't take cover. She walked into the open fire. She raised her rifle and fired with a speed and precision that defied physics. She was a demon. She killed the sniper in the rafters. She shot the advancing operatives through the gaps in their armor. She moved forward, screaming in rage, a one-woman army tearing through the elite soldiers like they were paper. Silence fell over the hall. Zola dropped the empty rifle and fell to her knees beside Tyrell. You idiot, she sobbed, pressing her hands against his wound. You stupid, arrogant idiot. Tyrell coughed, tasting copper. He smiled, his teeth stained red. Not too quiet anymore. Tyrell woke up in a chair. He was bound. His shoulder was bandaged, throbbing with a dull, heavy ache. He wasn't in a cell. He was in a private jet cabin. The interior was sterile, gray, and silent. Sitting across from him was an older man. He wore a simple charcoal suit, but he radiated power. His hair was silver, his eyes the same dark, dangerous color as Zola's. General Marcus Sterling. You are hard to kill, Mr. Vance, the general said, sipping a glass of water. My daughter wiped out 2 tactical teams to keep you breathing. It was impressive. And disappointing. Where is she? Tyrell rasped. Sedated. In the back, Sterling said. We are en route to a black site in Nevada. She will be reconditioned. You will be disposed of over the Atlantic. Tyrell tested the zip ties on his wrists. They were military grade. No give. She hates you, Tyrell said. She is a weapon. Weapons don't have feelings. They have malfunctions. You are a malfunction. She's not a weapon, Tyrell said, looking the general in the eye. She's the only person in the world who scares me. And the only person I trust. Tyrell leaned forward, fighting the pain in his shoulder. I have a proposition, General. Sterling laughed. A dry, humorless sound. You have nothing to bargain with. You are a criminal with a bullet hole in his shoulder. I have the one thing you want, Tyrell said. I have her loyalty. You saw what she did in the train station. She didn't fight like that for you. She fought like that for me. Sterling stopped. He set the glass down. She will never work for you again, Tyrell said, his voice gaining strength. If you kill me, she will burn your entire organization down from the inside. You know she can do it. You trained her. The general remained silent. He knew it was true. He had seen the footage. Zola wasn't fighting for orders anymore. She was fighting for love. And that made her uncontrollable. So here is the deal, Tyrell said. You let us go. We stay in Chicago. We keep the peace. You have a remote asset that you don't have to manage. But if you try to cage her again, you lose her forever. General Sterling stared at Tyrell for a long, agonizing minute. He reached into his jacket. Tyrell flinched, expecting a gun. The general pulled out a knife. He leaned forward and cut Tyrell's bonds. If she gets hurt, Sterling said, his voice low and lethal, I won't use a drone. I will come myself. The reopening of the Obsidian Club was the event of the year. The renovations were sleek, modern, and expensive. The glass walls were bulletproof now. The security team was new, hand-picked and trained by a woman no one dared to look in the eye. Tyrell stood on the balcony, looking down at the crowd. He wore a new suit, tailored to fit over the scar on his shoulder. He looked like a king again. But he didn't feel like one. He felt like something better. A partner. The door to the private office opened. Zola walked in. She wasn't wearing a plain black dress. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue silk that shimmered like armor. She walked to his side, resting her hand on the railing. The Southside crew is asking for a meeting, Zola said softly. Let them wait, Tyrell said. He turned to her. He reached out and touched her face, his thumb tracing the white scar on her jaw. He treated her like she was made of glass, even though he knew she was made of steel. You quiet tonight, he asked, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Zola looked at him. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. I don't need to be loud, Tyrell. They know who holds the leash now. She leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't the kiss of a submissive girl. It was a claim. Tyrell looked out at his city. He realized the lesson he had learned in the blood and the dark. True power wasn't about making noise. It was about standing next to the person who could silence the world for you. Long live the Queen, Tyrell whispered. Zola squeezed his hand. Long live the king. What an intense journey. The shift from bully to protector was powerful. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more redemption arcs and badass heroines, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't miss out on the next story. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Who was your favorite character, Tyrell or Zola? Let's talk in the comments.